Okay, can the step push everyone on stage? Okay, thank you. Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hi.
Hi. Good to see you.
Hello. Good morning from Kosovo.
Good morning and good afternoon to people in Asia. Welcome back. This is our last panel today. I hope you all enjoy the insightful talks and conversation so far. For the last panel, we have a very, very important topic to discuss. That is how countries that we have not yet officially entered the OGP, like Taiwan, Kosovo, and Malaysia, make their ways to join the OGP. Here with me, we have Peng Chi-Ming, co-convenor of OGNAP in Taiwan, Fidan Kalaja, chairperson of Kosovo membership in OGP, and Khairil Yusof, co-founder of Sinar project Malaysia, with me. Okay, so let me start it. Introduce our first panelist. Mr. Peng Chi-Ming is a longtime advocate of open government and open data in Taiwan. He was also the first person from Taiwan to meet with the Open Government Partnership and participate in the OGP Summit. He has attended the summit many times since 2012 and has long worked to promote international collaboration, encourage database exchanges among civil society groups, and created many opportunities for collaboration. He is currently a co-convenor of the Open Government National Action Plan Task Force. Let's welcome Peng Chi-Ming.
Thank you, Meichun, and thank you, everyone, my friend Kalaja and also Yusof from Kosovo and Malaysia. And I will talk something about the journey I joined to OGP from year 2015 to this year. And I'm also the role of chair of Taiwan Open Data Alliance, promote open data. OGP is from the US. US organized a country in year 2011 and start to organize OGP. And later on, the US President Obama promote open data. And the next year, Taiwan start to have the open data action plan. And we work very hard for that. I remember in year 2015, and also later on another 2 years, 17, we got the OKFN #1 ranking in the world. Although it's just 2 years ranking open data, however, it's only the Taiwan got a very high reputation about open data. That's why we want to join the international activities. For example, during that time, we joined the IODC, International Open Data Conference, and also OGP. And I remember in year 2015, we think the OGP is very good platform for the open government. Although the open data is totally different compared to the open government, but when we will talk about open government, the data is the key things, the core things. So that's why we want to, we think we have the ability to do something in OGP. So we sent a proposal to OGP in year 2015. And I remember I had with some people from our government official, I from the private sector, civil society, we went to the Mexico, to the OGP 15 and to join, and we lobby a lot. We drink a lot of tequila for Taiwan want to join the OGP. But several months later, we got the letter rejected because the OGP, their steering committee claimed not universal recognized on multiple occasions in relation to the application of Kosovo. And so that's why I'm very interested about Kosovo is just like Taiwan. And right now, the OGP, they think non-universal recognized states are not eligible for the full participation. So it's very interesting things about the political things. Although I think OGP, they follow the United Nations as a policy for that. And however, we are not so frustrated about that. We still want to join. So later on, next year, we join the OGP in Paris. And I remember Digital Minister Tang, she just on board and she attended the OGP, and finally she gave a speech during the ending ceremony. And in year 2018, and we also, some people went to the Georgia to the OGP, and also the regional meeting in Korea is our regional meeting in Korea and in Asia. And in year 2019, in Canada, Ottawa, in Taiwan, more than about, I remember about 11 or 15 people joined the OGP in 2019, and our Minister Tang announced Taiwan will have Taiwan National Open Government Action Plan. That's our OGP plan start. And after the OGP, the Ottawa, so our civil society government official organized a team. We want to do that. So our first Open Government National Action Plan task force was in last year in August. And later on, we followed the idea of the public-private partnership. We based on the platform V-Taiwan and join to collect lots of the idea. What's the open government we want from the public to summarize some idea and also dialogue with the government official. Later on, we have another meeting in October. And I remember in the early of this year, the minister with our portfolio, Minister Tang, and also the National Development Council Minister Guo Mingxing, and also that meeting, I was also elected, recommended as the co-convenor representative, the civil society of the task force. So that's why what our process about OGP. And so finally, in the early of this year, we announced the Taiwan Open Government National Action Plan. It's just the same term with our President Tsai, her president term, and it's about 4 years from 2021 to 2024. And we have some announcement about that. And what's the content of the Taiwan Open Data Action Plan? Because it's from the bottom up, we collect lots of the ideas. So each concept, we will have lots of meeting about that. For example, we have 5 sectors. The first one is promoting the open data and the freedom of information. In Taiwan, the open data is quite successful, and we have a lot of ecosystem. However, we still need the law about that. So how to completing the government open data and the data sharing mechanism is very important. So we also have some new concept for this. For example, strengthen the 1-3 is strengthen digital privacy and the personal information protection about that. And the second is the expand and the public participation mechanism, such as kind of the, for example, 2-4, facilitate the formation of labor unions is also very important. The third one is to increase the gender and the ethnic group inclusive dialogue. Such as kind of dialogue, especially the gender issues, is very important. Also enhance the integrity policies. I remember I got a survey about the integrity. Integrity is very important, especially the political, also the party campaign. Such as kind of the transparency is very important. So we start the integrity policy. Later on, I found when we got the rating, I think it's very clear. Taiwan also have the ability, for example, the legislation of the Whistleblower Protection Act, the 4-3 about that. And also the anti-money laundering about it's very good for the transparency. I think it's very good. So this action plan, we start to announce this, and also we have English version to the public. At the same time, we also have the Taiwan Open Parliament Action Plan. And I was also the civil society member to join for the first year. And there were several sectors. It's because it's based on the open parliament. So the transparency, the first one is transparency and the open parliament principle and the values. Also openness, participations, and also digitization, also literacy is very important. I remember about 6 to 7 our congressmen, and they organized together to do something about that. Sorry. And such as kind of meeting is also very important. And for example, such as kind of the concept, we still need the IRM. IRM is very important. IIM is very important for that. So because the funding is a very important. So we think in the future how to do the IIM. We can talk to it later on. And I attend the OGP for several times. For example, this is the case in Mexico. I think the OGP is a kind of the platform totally different compared with the other open data activities. It combines the government official, civil society, and also private sector. I think it's a very good platform to organize. However, how to make this difference compared with the IODC? But however, during the pandemic, everything changes a lot. But such is kind of platform, I think is very good. For example, I just come back from the United Kingdom, the Glasgow COP26. We talk about climate change. And in climate change, you also have lots of issues about the data, open, how to measurement, how to solve the problem of the climate change issues. So that's this kind of the topic. We can have a different group can work together to separate. And recently, I was invited to join the GPA Global Partnership for AI, and it's also the same thing about that. So such is kind of the subgroup under the United Nations is very important. And for example, our people join the OGP, and also we have a dialogue for that. We attend that a lot. We welcome our team, civil society, they join this, and also we have some talk about that. And I think I can give you a very successful story. This is from our civil society. They use the data, and they just got the presidential hackathon this year. I think they are top 5. And the key person is an engineer from the semiconductor industry, and he cared about the water resources. So he organized some people and some of the civil society working together, and also invite the government official. But before that, the government is all dominate everything. The government say, oh, we have the funding, we have the budget, we can do it by ourselves, we can solve the problem. But how to get the trust between the private sector and the civil society and the government is very important. So under this, they want to solve the water pollution problem, because in Hsinchu, it's a semiconductor industry, and however, their water they drink is from the polluted area. So how to get the transparency from the source of the water from the mountain, later on to the dam, and later on to across their living is very important. So they care about the living, drink the water, and also farming, and also better living, and also drinking is very important. So such is kind of the issue to get a benefit from the government. The government can save lots of money, and the community can get a better communication, and also the people can get to join this project. So such is kind of only one river, and later on they can copy to another river. So it's very successful story from the open data to open society, open government. So I think it's a very good example for Taiwanese and for all the international open government group. We can share and experience. And another thing is AODP, and I remember Yusof is also our members. And in the beginning, we think the open data is just we have the cultural gap between the Asia and Europe and also US, and the culture is totally different. So what we want to do is organize in Asia group. We work together to share its experience. So every year we will have a meeting. For example, today also have a AODP meeting by Vietnam. So sometimes our group will work together, also join the IODC and probably at the OGP. For example, this year we also invited to the APEC. APEC talk about open data for digital economy growth. So it's very important. So we can share the data and share the concept in this community together. For example, in Taiwan, because we have very good open data, and also later on, we have open government concept. Such is kind of ecosystem from the open data public sector to the civil society, also private sector. We can make an ecosystem. Different company can work together and also help the government to open the data, to make the data service supply chain is very important. Such is kind of trend to make the industry. data, we can say is a data industry or the data economy. It's also very close linked to our DigiPlus Taiwan the data plan, data economy, digital economy plan. So such is kind of LDP this year was held by the Vietnam. The Vietnam is the chair, so it's very successful story for the LDP. Such is kind of the international engagement. We have the competition between the group and also the technical platform and the training work group and also business opportunity, also trend research, and we can share each other. For example, this is a data portal. I think Kalaja is from the European Union, and also the EU, they have the data portal. That is kind of data portal is very interesting. So we just follow the trend to make the data portal for Asia. So it's about more than 100,000 data sets. So right now, lots of people use this data set. And we also have some kind of service. We can say it's a supply chain. So I think such is kind of the open data, open government, and we can work together. It's not only for one sector good, it's for all of the people good. I think we can keep going to integrate all of the interest group. We can work together for a better future. But in the long term, we hope Taiwan can be one of the OGP. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peng, for bringing us such inspiring story about LAS and also AODP. So next we will have a speaker, Mr. Fidan Kalaja. Fidan Kalaja is Senior Political Advisor and Chairman of Kosovo membership in OGP. He was founder and executive director of the Kosovo Center for Transparency, Accountability, and Anti-Corruption. He has been elected as an ordinary member of the United Nations Anti-Corruption Convention. For more than 5 years, he served as a deputy director of FOL Movement. It's a leading anti-corruption organization in Kosovo. Please join me. Welcome, Fidan Kalaja.
Good morning from Kosovo. It's my pleasure, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this event, talking about open governance in general, and specifically talking about the Open Government Partnership and our common problems that we have in the process of membership in the OGP. The process of Kosovo membership in OGP, it's a long journey. We have started this process in 2013, when we sent the letter of intent and we sent evaluation of 4 minimum eligible criteria in the OGP steering committee. And in the beginning, none of the countries has hesitated to support us within the process of Kosovo membership in OGP. In that time, we have established a working group to develop national action plan for Kosovo 2014-2016, and this group was composed by public institutions, civil society organization as a majority, and other relevant stakeholders. Considering the political aspect of Kosovo, we have a lot of international organizations that operates in Kosovo. So we have involved all of them in the process of developing a national action plan. After we have developed the national action plan with the stakeholders, organizing public consultation with the citizens, organizing online consultation with the citizens, and when we have sent the national action plan as a last step toward the membership in the OGP in 2014. We have received, we didn't receive any, to be honest, we didn't receive any answer from the OGP until 2015, when the government of Mexico said that Kosovo is not eligible to be part of the OGP. So we have started this project, this process 10 years ago, and we are still in the process of waiting for Kosovo to be member of the OGP. In 2015, when I was civil society organization representative, co-chairman of the process. Now I'm a politician and I'm chairman of the process. In 2015, when I was a co-chairman of the process, when we have received the letter from the government of Mexico that Kosovo is not eligible to become member of OGP, Kosovo government has made a huge mistake in that period, because Kosovo government has stopped all its commitments to in order to implement the national action plan that was developed by a working group. It was a mistake because my suggestion, and I believed in that, was that we need to implement the national action plan. Beside what Mexico government says, we need to unilaterally to implement the national action plan, because national action plan has one mission: to improve good governance, open governance, fight against corruption, transparency, public accountability, and enhancing public services in one country. So Kosovo has stopped all the activities toward the implementation of this plan in 2015, and now we are in 2021 when we have reinitiated the process from the beginning. One thing that I should point it out, which is very important for every country and everyone who intend to be part of the OGP. We were applauded by the OGP support unit in 2013, 2014, how we have managed to co-create the national action plan. Because from the beginning we have involved civil society, other relevant stakeholders like the business sector, international organizations, international embassies in the process of drafting national action plan. But unfortunately, even though that we were applauded, we didn't have a positive response from the steering committee for becoming a full member of the OGP. The answer of Mexico toward Kosovo and Taiwan, I think it's legally biased, because in the documents of the OGP there is no article that says that Kosovo case, Taiwan case, do not have the right to be members of OGP. For instance, Kosovo is recognized by 170 countries, and also it's a member of many international organizations like World Bank, IMF, and other international important organizations. So I think that because Mexico didn't recognize Kosovo independence, was biased in its approach toward Kosovo, and I think it was biased also in the case of Taiwan. but we need to go on. There is no place for becoming pessimists. We need to move forward the process, and in this year, the Kosovo government has adopted a decision to start to reinitiate the process of Kosovo membership in Open Government Partnership. We have made some changes from the 2013 process. We have established National Coordination Committee, which is composed again by institutions, civil society as a majority, and other relevant stakeholders. Why civil society as a majority? Because we want to have the civil society to be decisive part of the process of drafting national action plan, and we want to have them in the process from the beginning, called as it is called by the OGP co-creation plan. We don't want to create a national action plan by the government offices and then present this document to the civil society, but we want to involve civil society as a majority in National Coordination Committee. We have established the National Coordination Committee. We are now in the process of drafting technical plan how we can move forward in draft national action plan. And yes, we are in the process of also evaluating for minimum eligibility. Fiscal transparency, access in public documents, declaration of assets by public officials, and excuse me, participation of citizens in decision-making processes. I'm very sure that Kosovo fulfills 4 minimum eligible criteria. As foreseen in fiscal transparency, we do publish in annual basis the budget of Kosovo. It's public. Everyone can have access in the budget, and also we have audit reports open for the public to see the reports of audit reports. The second criteria is access to public documents. We have a law, and we have foreseen, and the access in public documents is it's in our constitutions as a right of citizens to have access in public documents. Declaration of assets by public institutions. It's we have a law on declaration of assets, and it's public. Everyone can have access in declaration of assets by public officials. And the second one is participation of citizen in the decision-making process. We have very good legislative forms that every citizen can have access in every citizen can have access in this data. We have decided that this evaluation of this 4 minimum criteria to be in order to increase the independence and objectivity of the process. So the civil society organization has organized a group that is working on evaluation of these 4 minimum eligible criteria. Now we are in the process of working in working groups toward drafting National Action Plan 2022-2024 as OGP requires, and we are committed to implement this National Action Plan, whatever the fate of Kosovo will be in the next in this year and or in the next year regarding the membership of OGP. This is the best way how we lobby to OGP to show them that we are very much interested to be part of OGP through by examples, by good examples, like preparing the National Action Plan with main stakeholders like civil society as a decisive part of the process, and also implementing the National Action Plan as foreseen by OGP. Another thing that we are trying to do unilaterally is to prepare an open call for international reporting mechanism for Kosovo. So we want to have international experts that will evaluate the implementation, the level of the implementation of the National Action Plan in Kosovo by international experts. If we don't get the membership in this year or the next year, we are working with Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kosovo to coordinate our activities with different countries, different governments, in order to lobby for Kosovo to become a full membership of OGP. We need to do that, even though that it's not technically our job, but we need to do this, because as I said in the beginning, none of the steering committee governments do not have the right to. It's foreseen in the declaration of principles of the OGP. So we have the right to become members of OGP, and we will lobby toward this. We will continue our lobby advocacy activities toward becoming the OGP member. What else?
Mr. Kalaja?
As we are in the process. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it's about time. So could you just wrap up your talk in a few sentences?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
For us, it's very important to have good governance, and it's a commitment of the government. And the good governance, it's our priority for the next 4 years that we are in the government. Hope that we will have a social cohesion toward the open government and transparent government. Thank you so much, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kalaja. It's really inspiring and to hear about the story of Kosovo, and also happy to see that you restart your initiative. And so next we'll have our last panelist, Mr. Khairil Yusof. Mr. Khairil Yusof is our good friend, has visited Taiwan many times. Khairil is the coordinator at Sinar project, a civic tech initiative promoting open data and government transparency. He is also an open source coder and an independent investigative journalist. He's currently coordinating the Open Data for Development Network Asian Hub program. So please join me. Welcome, Khairil Yusof.
Hi.
First, yours.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yes, I miss Taiwan. It used to be almost like every other month, I think. So for my talk, representing for Malaysia, our path to open government partnership is slightly different in the sense that we have a government that is not supportive. So it's the other way around. So for us, it's driven by civil society, and the reasons that we are not able to be part of OGP is because the government the government's not supportive of it, and we're missing a few pieces such as FOI from joining. So just a little background. So for Malaysia, for 2011 and 2018. Kind of the background leading up to all the work that we've done for open government is basically an environment of increasing awareness of democracy, a lot of widespread protests under a quite an authoritarian government. So this is kind of the background that we've been working on in our path. And one of the things that we learn as civil society is that democratic goals and ideals tend to be universal. So in our work towards an open government, we've found, in terms of better transparency and accountability and so on, we learned that this is universal. So we started looking at, what are the international goals and what are other people working towards with internationally. So for us, we started out, which is the key goal of our organization, which is basically to have access to Parliament. I think it was the previous panel. And for that, we found that, some common international goals and effort, which is the opening Parliament declaration. And we saw some key goals that were aligned with our organization initiatives. And we're kind of core towards, kind of the open government goals as well. A culture of openness, making information transparent, making it accessible. And for us, especially moving towards modern access and participation with government is basically enabling electronic communication and access to this. So the first thing that we did as civil society was actually to reach out to the international community of civil society organizations that also had the similar goals as us. And for that, we looked around and saw who else is doing a similar work to us in terms of providing, efforts to make government more accessible, especially in terms of Parliament. And we found out that, in our case, we looked to the UK because Malaysia is a Commonwealth country. And we found out that, there's a civil society in the UK called My Society. We looked around as well, to all the other countries as part of that's supporting the Open Parliament Declaration. And we also found GovZero. And GovZero Taiwan had a very similar, culture to us in Sinar project in terms of being a very technical and open source culture and bringing this culture in terms of approaches to open data, in terms of open access to government, I mean. So one of the good things about reaching out internationally is that we started learning that, the issues that we have and the path that others have took are not too different. Even though when we looked at, say, Taiwan or we looked at UK and we feel like, oh, this is what we want. But we learned also from them that, that there's a lot of policy reforms before Taiwan and UK got to where they were right now. We learned that it took a very long time. So that kind of, changed our outlook in terms of not feeling too disappointed. We looked at how they engage government. And also, we also learned about, which agencies or government agencies or champions that they work with to understand, the steps that we also need to take for Malaysia to get to where these countries are. The other thing that we found out about civil society is that this process of trying to open government happens within and around OGP events, in the sense that it's an international community. And one of the things that we learned was that not to be discouraged, that there's value in keeping up with our initiatives. And as a result, we learned in Malaysia that, the challenges that we face also can lead to innovations for us in terms of the approaches of how to get government open. Things such as using open data that was mentioned earlier by Dr. Peng, and also ways around collaboration, like how GovZero does it, in terms of working together towards a common goal. And that these things can overcome some of the limitations and constraints that you have in Malaysia. The other thing that we also learned was that opening government is an extremely large and complicated task. We started to learn that the scope goes beyond just opening parliament, and that if we really want to have an open and participatory government, that we are going to need to have to look into all these other different aspects of government that need to be opened up in order for us to have a truly open and transparent government. So I mentioned that it was open and participatory. So one of the things that we learned is that by participating and engaging with international NGOs, especially for around efforts that are universal, such as open procurement through open contracting, as well as other NGOs that kind of support similar initiatives, such as freedom of information or access to information or open data. What we learned was that just because Malaysia is not part of the Open Government Partnership does not mean that we are excluded, from participating, from learning, and also being supported by, and I'll come back to this a little bit later, in participating towards all the different processes towards an open government. The other thing that we learned also was that it's a good thing to build allies and coalitions within civil society of your country. So in countries where you're constrained democratically, you really need to work together with the other civil society organizations, because all of you do not have enough resources because of the political constraints that you have working in. So this is also helpful in the sense that in building the coalitions that civil society, you also help start formulating, certain common policies. So, for example, in Malaysia, through the Governance Integrity, Accountability, and Transparency Project, we found out coalition. We found out that certain key things that we need to work on towards being part of the Open Government Partnership, such as having a Freedom of Information Act, having asset declaration, and a participatory civil society environment, that we could all work together on each of these points and support each other work towards these points, which will enable us to be part of the Open Government Partnership. So similarly, we work with, for example, media organizations with the Freedom of Expression cluster to get support and work on the policies towards having a Freedom of Information Act in Malaysia. So we got close. So in 2018 for Malaysia, all this work, we ended up being able to lobby, as civil society organizations to actually have as part of the manifesto of one of the coalitions, political coalitions, to actually have open government partnership as part of their election manifesto or promise. And that coalition actually ended up winning the elections in 2018. So we were all ready. So we were, so we had a government that had open government partnership as an election promise. But unfortunately, that all kind of fell through due to some political maneuverings in 2020, March 2020, which meant that as we were just about to start the process in terms of applying as a country for the open government partnership, the government changed and it went back to a government that was not supportive of the open government partnership goals. So this is when we learned that working and building allies in civil service is helpful for countries with, where you have kind of policy instability. By working with allies and finding allies in government, it meant that even though governments may change, the civil servants and the agencies that are working towards, better government will continue with their policies. And civil servants don't tend to change. And then the policies of agencies don't tend to change. And this resulted in some, wins for us in the sense that those international organizations that we worked with before, we could connect and work with allies in government, as well as gov to gov. All right. So just to wrap it up, all these steps led us finally towards, getting it more organized and to put all the kind of coalition goals together into clear policy and strategic planning. We used Open Government Partnership's National Action Plan templates, which are available at this link. And this made it, even though we're not part of the OGP, the civil society and our government champions can start working towards strategic formulation and still keep working towards our goals and following the national action format without a formal, without being formally part of the OGP. And to wrap it up, finally, is that, this is a long process. I think it's more than 8 years now for us. And one of the things is that we keep building on this, so we keep it going through, for example, highlighting all the ongoing initiatives that are happening for open government in Malaysia. And then we also keep building the network and contact of all the government champions and civil society champions working on all the different initiatives towards open government in Malaysia. So, yep. So the work continues. We're getting through it towards working through the National Action Plan. It means that the next time we have an opportunity with a change in government, that civil society in Malaysia as well as the civil service will be ready for us to quickly be, apply formally and be part of the Open Government Partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yusof. It's really touching to hear all of your story about these long years ongoing efforts to be part of the OGP or like pushing the government to be more transparency, accountable, and collaborative. So here we have some questions. Dear audience, please put your questions on the Slido, and you can write like here as in Chinese. 你可以用中文发问没有问题，我们会有一个翻译来帮忙这个翻译。We will have a translator to translate these Chinese questions. So maybe we should start from the first questions, and now we need our interpreter, Sam. Can you help me with the first one?
Great.
Yes.
So this person asked that anti-corruption and other commitments in the OGP is likely not something that all political parties are willing to agree to. So this person wants to ask Mr. Fidan if the reason why Kosovo stopped the OGP National Action Plan, what was the reason? So was it due to some kind of political tension, or did it just kind of, was there a party change, or what happened?
So Mr. Kalaja?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. In 2015, we had the most corrupted government in the history of Kosovo, and I think that this was the idea and the intention of the government to stop the implementation of the National Action Plan, because the National Action Plan in that time has foreseen many commitments and activities toward fight against corruption within the public institutions. So corrupted government has decided to stop the implementation of National Action Plan, because it's it's logic that the corrupted government cannot fight corruption, and it's not in their interest to fight corruption, to increase transparency, openness, and accountability toward its citizens. So this was the reason why in 2015 Kosovo government has stopped the process of implementation of the National Action Plan.
Thank you. I think the political factors are so important when we want to push for more open government, especially from the civil society, right? I wonder, although this question is for Mr. Kalaja, maybe Yusof, you have something to talk about, like how you push for this kind of open government policies when the government is not so willing, especially it is a little bit corrupted or not so transparent.
Yeah, I mean, for this, for civil society, this is your goals anyways, right? You know, it's a goal of Transparency International. It's a goal of Sinar project. So for us, regardless of whether the government is supportive or not, it continues. It's just a different level of corruption or accessibility that's happening. So for us as civil society, it doesn't really change much. Just the environment changes, but our work continues. Yeah.
Thank you. So the next question is also for Khairil, Mr. Yusof. What is the reason that the current Malaysia government does not support joining OGP? You probably mentioned a little bit about, maybe you want to expand a little more?
Yeah, basically there's some key points in the OGP partnership. So that's why I kind of envy Taiwan, because your governments are supportive. But there's some very key points in terms of being, I think there's like about 4 points that you have to have. And for Malaysia, part of that requires a Freedom of Information Act. It also requires, asset declaration of politicians. So this is not something that you can just open wash. The moment that you have an FOI legislation and the moment that you have asset declarations as part of your as part of your government, then that is not something that a government that's not transparent is willing to push for. So as a result, it's not a good opportunity. It's actually something that they would not want to have. Yep.
Okay, so our next question is in Chinese. So please, Sam, can you help us?
Yeah. So how can civil society use open government to push for more social reform? Not only in terms of government, but also including other issues such as gender equality and environmental protection.
I think maybe three of our panelists can talk about this. Mr. Peng, you want to first?
Yeah, Actually, the open government, just like it's a kind of platform to relate it to the civil society and all of the other organizations together. But it should cover the government. Government in the society is very important. So if we have the government role and they know the idea, and because when we want to do the open government, we should use it's a totally different way. It should combine all of the interest group. For example, the PPP, public-private partnership, the civil society government officials should sit down and sit together. Not all the government official is bigger than the others. So it's a very good concept to organize our civil society working together. Not only the government, but the government can be correlated with the other group together. So I think such is kind of the gender issues or environmental protection is the OGP is a very good platform for that. And however, we should notice about it's open washing. Open washing. For example, this time when I was in COP26, the most word is greenwashing. Greenwashing. Every country like to greenwash it. So the civil society to join such this kind of group, give different opinion, just like a balance is very important. Yeah, I think the next question is very interesting. Maybe I can answer because in Taiwan we have an action plan, and can we join the OGP? Can we have the more opportunity? And I think the key issue is the political issues. I don't think it's not so easy. I hope the other country can support Taiwan. And however, the OGP is not only one country can dominate, and they have a steering committee. And it's not easy. I don't think it's very, very easy. But when we have the national action plan, it's a first criteria. We already have this, and later on, if the political issue can skip, and we can be one of the OGP member. Just like in Taiwan, we also, although we are not a member of the UN, however, we also follow the global, just like climate change issues, and also just like ICAO, we just follow the global standard. And although we are not one of them, but we can be one of them in the future, and because we are ready enough.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peng. So I want to return back to the first Chinese question because I think maybe Mr. Kalaja and Mr. Yusof have something to say. Let me repeat it again because it's in Chinese. So it's about how civil society use open government as a platform to push for more social reform, not only about the government, but also about other issues like gender equality or environmental protection or others. Who want to go first? Mr. Kalaja, do you want to go first?
Okay. It's very important. The OGP is very important for civil society organization, especially my experience in Kosovo and in the Southeast European region. I can provide you with one concrete example. We have launched recently e-procurement in Kosovo. And after the launch of e-procurement in Kosovo, the civil society organization had the possibility to have access in the procurement procedures of any entity, public entity of Kosovo. And now we have a drastic down of corruption in the procurement process because the civil society is very vigilant, and they can use open data from the public procurement, from the e-procurement, in order to fight corruption and to increase transparency in this section.
Yep. I'll just add for social issues. I think the examples that I gave in Malaysia are all around, anti-corruption and transparency and procurement. But the OGP process is actually about, civil co-creation. So it doesn't have to be that the National Action Plan is just around these issues on transparency, corruption, and so on. So what I would recommend is that, for civil society or groups working on other issues, for example, social issues, gender, or LGBT rights and so on, is that you can also actually be part of that process and actually work on a national action plan and find a champion in government. For example, in Malaysia, if we would want to work on gender issues, then you would actually work together with, say, the Ministry for Women and Welfare, and actually co-create a national action plan to deal with gender issues, as an example.
Good. Thank you so much. So it's actually about time, but I want to, if you have 5 more minutes, let's finish up a few questions. Is that okay? Okay, so I think I will go for several questions together, and because each are for different persons. The first 2 are similar for Mr. Kalaja about Kosovo. So since Kosovo is not an OGP member yet, do you face any difficulties when initiating the OGNAP National Action Plan? How do you decide to restart the NAP? And the following question is kind of similar. It's what's the following plan for you to join OGP after you restart this initiation? What advantage do you expect of being a member? And then a question for Mr. Yusof is in the bottom, that how to persuade civil servants to implement OGP value. So probably we can go for this 2 set of questions, and Mr. Peng, you can add a final note to close this panel. Can we start from Mr. Kalaja?
Yes. Yes. We have initiated the process of Kosovo membership in OGP through respecting all the steps and principles of set up by OGP. We don't have any difficulties in draft national action plan, because as I said, we have established national coordination committee that is responsible to draft the national action plan. But what we see as a difficult as a difficulty in this regard is that can we become full member of OGP in this year or in the following year? So this is our concern. The advantage of being member of OGP, there are different advantages. One is political one. We want to be members of many international organizations. As a new state, we declared independence in 2008. So we want to be members of different international organizations and to be committed to their values and principles. We will follow and we will respect all the OGP principles and standards of draft national action plan. I'm very positive that we will achieve a very good process during this following weeks and months after until April next year, when we will deliver the national action plan to OGP.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Yusof?
This is regarding the civil servants.
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of persuading civil servants, one is that it's OGP is part of the international process. So being involved, in the OGP means being involved in the international processes and being part of the international efforts. As Dr. Peng mentioned, there are standards being developed in terms of open data or procurement or best practices in opening parliament. And the OGP provides a great opportunity to be a part of this international process, to meet other governments, to meet with civil society, both local and international. And I think this is a really exciting thing for civil servants. So that's on a kind of personal level, to be able to be part of this, and it's a great experience. On the second part, in terms of doing with OGP, is it's usually aligned with what their goals are. So as civil servants, you usually have certain policies or that you need to implement. And being part of that OGP process is often aligned with what you need to do. And as I mentioned to you before, it connects you with the international community working on those issues. And it also provides some sort of continuity as well, in the sense that you can work with this community towards your own kind of policy goals of your department or agency. And not be beholden to the current government of the day, so you can continue. And so I think these are the two things that make it really worthwhile.
Thank you. Mr. Peng, do you want to add a final note as a Taiwan representative here?
Actually, although I don't think we are not so easy to join OGP, but in the future, I would like to, because we will follow the OGP standard and also make good friends with the other country. For example, Kalaja, and probably in the near future, we can have more conference so we can together to talk about some issue. Or probably we can also join OGP in the near future to join their side event. We can talk something about that by ourselves. And we also have probably have another meeting in the COP OGP environment. And so I think cooperation is very important, especially if we have the same situation, and such is kind of experience sharing is very important for us, both of us. I think we can keep going on for that.
Thank you so much for this beautiful ending talk. Well, I think we have a very, very inspiring conference today, and also happy to make new friends and unite with our old fans here, and hope we can see each other in OGP summit somewhere very soon. Okay, so I'm afraid I need to wrap up the event today because it's about time. Thank you everybody for joining us here. This is not the end of the event, it's the end of today. Tomorrow we will have more talks and conversations throughout the day. So please come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Taiwan time. We have another moderator tomorrow, so I will say goodbye here with everyone. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for
so
having
much.
us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.